Well, good evening. Welcome to Thursday evening devotions from the kitchen table, where we've been talking about women of the Bible. We've been talking about a different woman each week. Many of them, as you know, did not have any names. Some of them did. Some of them were prominent people. Some of them were not. Some of them had menial tasks and jobs. But all of them were important in establishing the faith throughout the known world, and thus being allowing us to have the Word of God today and establish our faith as well. Well, this evening we're going to be speaking from or looking at a woman. Her story is found in 1 Kings chapter 1, verses 3 and 4, and then it carries over into chapter 2, verses 13 through 25. And it is found on page 505 of my Bible. This woman's name is Abishag, A-B-I-S-H-A-G. Okay, now she remains silent in this story. She doesn't say a word, and yet she has a very critical role to play in the history of Israel. She plays this is a drama that she's involved with in it, and it seems strange to us. She's involved in this drama and she never had a plan. She didn't help plan it or anything. She just kind of got caught up in it. Kind of like happens to us sometimes. We get caught in this drama. And speaking of drama, this virus now seems to be on the increase we've been dealing with. And I pray that you're safe and sound, and that all is well with you and yours, and do the best you can just to stay that way, to try to stay safe. And hopefully they'll have a virus where folks can get it pretty soon in the near future. Some folks will be able to get it sooner than others. So, well, the story that I'm going to tell you illustrates just how dysfunctional of a family that King David had. David was, highly thought of throughout Israel, perhaps the greatest king Israel ever had. Even God said that David was a man after his own heart. And yet David struggled with all kinds of things in life, and his family was even a dysfunctional family. He had 4 wives and I don't remember how many kids, but at least 3 sons he had. So he had trouble. His family were struggling over power. 2 of his sons tried to claim his throne while he was still alive, and the eldest, which is not included in this story today, but he had tried to steal David's throne, and he ended up paying with it for his life. Someone, not David, but someone had him killed as well. Now in this story, David is along in years. Certainly in his culture in that day, in that era, without modern day medicines and the like, he would have been considered to be very old. And in this story, he will soon die. He dies in chapter 2 here of 1 Kings at the age of 70, after 40 years on the throne. So he had a long reign. Now in his old age, he's just like people of today, just like us, that as we age, our bodies start changing. Some have a more rapid change than others. And so he was cold all the time as he aged, and he was weak, and he just wasn't able to govern from the throne anymore. He was just becoming old and feeble. And so they wanted to try to help David, thinking that they could invigorate him, to get some of his strength back and some of his cognitive abilities back. And so they devised a plan to go to the city of Shuman. Now Shuman was a city, and it was a coastal city. It was about right in the middle of Israel, up the coast there. They were going to go to Shunem and bring back a beautiful woman, a beautiful young girl, a Shunammite woman, and let her sleep on David's bosom, hoping that would help and to rejuvenate him and renew his physical body and the like. Now, Shunem was well known for having extraordinarily beautiful women in the day. If you wanted a beautiful woman, that's where you went, was the city of Shunem, and bring back a Shunammite woman. Well, they went there, and sure enough, they found a beautiful young woman for David by the name of Abishag, and that's spelled Abishag, Abishag, and it means my father wonders, or my father errs. And they would make David marry her before Abishag was allowed to sleep with him. Now, because of David's physical condition, there were no sexual relations involved, none at all. Just an attempt to revitalize the king and to keep him warm. Well, they had a good plan for the day, but it didn't work. David died shortly after Abishag entered his courts. Now, before David died, his oldest living son, named Adonijah, declared himself to be the king before David was even dead. And he obtained chariots and horses. He even had 50 men to run ahead of them. That's how they did it in that day. They would put runners out in front of the chariots and the horses. And then he sacrificed sheep and cattle and even the fatted calves, and invited all of the men of Judah and many royal officials to come and to celebrate with him as he declared himself to be king, to sit on the throne. After he issued all his invitations, he did not invite his younger brother Solomon, to whom David had promised would sit on the throne. He promised his mother Bathsheba that her son Solomon would sit on the throne. He didn't invite Nathan the prophet to come and celebrate with him either, nor Benaniah or the special guard that looked after the king. They were not invited either. Solomon's mother Bathsheba was told about Adonijah's plan to take the throne, and she went to King David and told him about it, and she pleaded with David then to let Solomon have the throne that he had promised to her that Solomon, her son Solomon, would sit upon. And so then David gave orders. He told Nathan, commanded Nathan and others to put Solomon on the king's donkey and lead him out to the place where he would be given the oath of office, the oath of kingship. And then he took Solomon and set him on the throne. And then his brother Adonijah found out that Solomon had taken the oath and was sitting on the throne, and that because he made himself king, that Adonijah's plan, it was foiled, and so he lost round one there. And so he came up with another plan to try to claim the throne for his own. When his father, King David, died, then he went to Solomon's mother, Bathsheba, and made a request of her that he be allowed to marry Abishag, who was David's last wife and the youngest wife that they brought her to keep the king warm. Bathsheba saw nothing wrong with the request, and so she went to her son, King Solomon now, and made a request, said, let Adonijah marry Abishag. She's a beautiful woman and he's a very handsome man. Let them marry each other. Said, I see nothing wrong with it. Solomon, however, was the wisest man that ever lived in his era. And he saw right through Adonijah's plan. He just saw it as another way to try to take the throne. It was another scheme that he was trying to gain power and control from his brother. On seeing through Adonijah's plan, David had, now they were brothers by different mothers, okay? Adonijah's mother was Hagar, which was David's fourth wife. And anyway, Solomon had his brother Adonijah executed for his efforts in trying to take the throne twice. That he would have been a plague or a blight on the throne of Israel. Now Abishag was with King David at the end of his reign. And she saw what was once a magnificent ruler turned into someone who was fading out, losing his life. And then she was involved in this drama and she saw Adonijah try to claim the throne of David while he was still alive. And now here, after David's gone, she sees that Adonijah is trying to carry on another scheme, another plan to take Solomon's throne. It was an attempt of a wannabe king to take the power and authority that he was not entitled to. Boy, that happens all the time, doesn't it? People that govern, sometimes they like the power and they forget that they work for the people instead of the people working for them. But I guess that's the way it always is. It seems like, anyway. Well, even though Abishag is silent in this story, or in the scriptures for that matter, she had a very, very important role to play in the kingdom of Israel. And with that, let me just close by sharing this with you. This comes from 1 Chronicles chapter 28, verse 20. David said to Solomon his son, be strong. And I'm thinking, as I'm saying this, I'm thinking of this virus that we have to deal with. You know, we have to deal with it, but don't let it control your life. Okay, we've been through other things. God's brought us through other things as well. David said to Solomon, his son, be strong and courageous, and do the work. Do not be afraid or discouraged, for the Lord my God is with you. So do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you and help you, and I will uphold you with my righteous hand. Have a blessed week.